In the last session, we discussed about roles and users. When we talk about roles, we discussed we have four type of roles, but the data roles concept we don't have in the latest versions. In the older versions, we have. So finally, in the latest version, we have only three type of roles: job roles, duty roles, abstract roles. And we discussed about version also, but we'll see in the application how that can be just addressed by seeing through specific navigation. And these are the points we discussed as a part of responsibility in EBS. You could select data group, menu, request group, but in the Fusion, as a part of job role, we can select the functions or privileges under the reports, and there is no separate request group here. So everything we can group into job role only. And we discussed we have a two type of users in Fusion applications. When you start working on the instance, ideally we have to start with implementation user, which we create from the security console. So once you are ready with the legal entity and a business unit, you can create employee user. You can create brand new employee user, or you can convert implementation as a employee user. You can convert implementation user as employee user, or you can create employee user separately. So it could be implementation user or employee user to perform the implementation related configuration testing or anything. The user required access to these three basic roles: application implementation consultant, IT security manager, employee. The application implementation consultant role will allow the user to have access to FSM. FSM stands for functional setup manager, so that the user will be able to perform the setups. If you assign the IT security manager role to the user can have access to security console. The security console will allow the user to create new users if required, and we can assign the roles to the users, and if required we can create the custom roles. And employee role will give the privileges to have access to employee self-service access pages, and even employee role will allow the user to run the reports similar to EBS. In EBS, we go to SRS window, we run the reports. In the same way, here user will be able to run the reports. So these three are three primary roles which we have to assign. So you can assign to any user, implementation user or employee user. That user will be able to have access to these areas of access. So apart from that, if you are accessing the application as implementation user, you cannot create supplier definition and you cannot create requisitions and purchase orders. If you are accessing the application as a employee user, the system will allow you to create the suppliers as well as procurement related documents. These can be created being a employee user. Okay. So these are the points we discussed in the yesterday session. Now what we'll do is we'll go and create one implementation user. Okay, we'll create implementation user and we'll assign these three roles to that user. To access the instance, I'm going to use one user called as Google user. Okay, I'll use one user called as Google. So to this user, this Google user, these three roles are already assigned. Since these three roles are assigned, with the help of the IT security manager, we can access to security console and we'll be able to create the new user from this user. And when you are going to practice on the instance, I'll provide the separate user by assigning all these roles so that you can create your own user from that user. Okay, so now we'll log into the instance. Okay, this is the instance. This is a cloud instance. So we'll connect to the instance as a Google user. Fine. So to create the new user, we have to go to security console. As we discussed, from security console we can create the user. Now what we have to do is, here is the navigator. Okay, here you could see some bars. Click on that navigator icon. Once you click on the navigator icon, so in this window, go to tools section. You have a tools. Go to tools, and under tools you can find one task called as security console. You have to go to security console. Click on security console. Ignore that message. We'll discuss about that. What is the message, why, in which scenario we have to run that job, etc. Ignore it. Here select users. Okay, select users. So then you can create the new user here. So what process we are following? First, just log into the instance, then go to navigator. Just click on this navigator icon. Within the navigator you can find tools that you have to expand tools section. Under tools we have one task called as security console. Click on security console. Okay, we are trying to create the user. To create the user, this is the navigation you have to select and go to users and click on add user account. Just click on add user account. So we are creating the implementation user. So when you create implementation user, we don't require legal entity and business unit. Here you can provide the user last name. So here you can just give the name as username. I am giving as a cloud inc, and this is the last name. You can provide first name, last name, email ID, but everything you can provide, but not mandatory. So I am giving the username as cloud inc. Username also I required as a say cloud inc. And set password. It's a simple password policy. We have at least 8 characters word number. Okay, provide password and confirm the same. Now we have to assign these 3 roles to the user: application implementation consultant, IT security manager, and employee. To assign the roles to this user, click on add role. Click on add role. Search for application implementation consultant role. So application. So when you search with application, you could see, say application implementation. When you search for application implementation, you can find the different roles: application implementation administrator, application implementation consultant, application implementation manager. But to have a full privileges to perform the configuration in the system, we have to select a role called as application implementation consultant. If you select manager or administrator, you cannot have full privileges to the system to do all the required setups as a part of implementation. So you have to search and select role called as application implementation consultant only. So application implementation consultant. Here you could see 2 roles. Both are same, but the role codes are different. Both are application implementation consultant roles only. So codes are different. This is starting with ASM application implementation consultant, but for this role, the prefix is ORA. It is starting with ORA. So It makes difference when you are going to do the customizations, role customizations on. At that time you'll understand. Now for now, any role you can select. Both will have the same privileges. And since the vision instance, somebody made a copy of these two roles. We can copy the role. Somebody copied the first role and second role. That is the reason we have two more roles with the same name where suffix they added as a copy. Now you can select any one of these two roles. Both are same but code is different. Anyone you can select. Both roles will have the same privileges. Select it and select and say add role membership. Add role membership is nothing but assign role to user. The role application implementation consultant was added to the user. Say OK. Now what is the other role we have to assign? IT security manager. Search for IT security manager. See in the background you can see as the role is added. Now we have to assign IT security manager role. The IT security manager role also we have two copies. So one is starting with FND IT security manager job. The other one, the prefix is ORA, ORA FND IT security manager. But these two roles will have the same privileges. Anyone you can select. The two roles somebody copied and they marked as do not use. Select IT security manager role and select and say assign. And one more role we have to assign, that is employee. Right, search for employee role. So here also is the same case, same role, two copies where codes are different, and somebody made a copy of the same role. You could see that copy. Okay, select role and say add role membership. Say OK, done. So we assigned three roles to this user. Now you can click on save. The password, the user is already exist. Okay. So we'll go with the user called as set password. Fine. So we are using the user called as cloud ERP and three roles we assign to that user. Then click on save. So this user also exists. I'll say Go Fusion. Say save and close. We are creating a user called as Go Fusion. So save and close. So user is created, we'll find the same user. Search for user called as Go Fusion. So this is our username, Go Fusion, last name, and status is active, user is locked, no. We didn't provide any email ID. If you want to reset the password for this user, go to actions. You can reset the password or else you can delete the user or you can log the user account. We'll go and reset the password. Select manually change the password. new password and confirm the same. So reset the password. Done. So just again you can click on that same username. It will take us to the user definition, what roles already assigned to that user. These three roles are assigned, right? Application implementation consultant, employee, IT security manager. These three roles are assigned. If you want to assign the additional roles later point of time, click on edit and you can click on add role. This is how you can assign additional roles to existing user. Fine. Click on cancel. So now we created a user and we assign the roles. After assigning the roles to any user, what we have to do is we have to run Ldap job. We have to run Ldap job. So what happens is in the Fusion application we have Ldap directory services. LDAP, it stands for L stands for lightweight, D stands for directory, A stands for access, P stands for protocol. Lightweight directory access protocol. So this is the directory service which is available in the Fusion applications. What happens is if you create any user and if you assign any roles to that user, for which user which roles are created, those need to be updated in the LDAP directory services. When that user is trying to access the application, as per LDAP, whatever information is updated, okay, accordingly the user will be able to access. Say now we created a user called as Go Fusion, right? We assigned three roles. If the same information is going to be updated in the LDAP, then only when this user will access to the application, this roles related privileges this user can access. If this information is not updated in the LDAP, even the three roles are assigned to this user cannot have access to these three roles related privileges. Whatever we are assigning to the user that need to be updated in the LDAP, lightweight directory access protocol services. When user will connect to application as a Go Fusion, that user, the authentication and everything will happen through LDAP. The user will try to connect to the application and try to access those roles as per the records which are available in the LDAP. Just because we assign to the user directly, user cannot have access. Whatever the assignment, whatever the roles you are assigning to the user, those need to be updated in the LDAP. As per LDAP records only, user will have a privileges to work on the application. So that is the reason what we have to do is whenever you assign the roles to that user, that information will be updated in the LDAP, okay, LDAP directory services automatically, but it may take some time to get updated. That is the reason what Oracle is recommending is whenever you assign the roles to any user, we have to submit the LDAP job. Here job is nothing but request. As per EBS, whatever we are calling as a request, that the same request in Fusion we are calling as a job. So now what we have to do is we have to go and submit LDAP job so that for our user, whatever the roles we assign, those would get synchronized. Okay, those would get synchronized with LDAP so that user will be able to have access to the same role related privileges. If you don't submit this LDAP, the synchronization will happen, the updates will happen, but not immediately. It may take some time. Instead of waiting, whenever you assign the roles to the user, you have to submit the LDAP job so that the assignments will get synchronized immediately so that user can get connected to the relevant privileges. Fine. So we'll go and run the LDAP job. Fine, we're done with the user creation and we assign the roles. Now what we are going to do is we are going to submit the LDAP job. Just go to navigator. Within the navigator, go to tools. Here we have a tools, right? Expand tools. Under tools, we have a task called as scheduled process. We have a task called as scheduled process. Select this task. this page, okay, this page we call as ESS job page. Okay, ESS job page. ESS stands for Enterprise Scheduler Service. From this ESS job page only you can submit any report or any process related jobs. In EBS we have SRS window, right? SRS window. SRS stands for Standard Request Submission. So equal to this SRS window in Fusion ESS job page we have any job you want to submit from this page only you can submit. So now which job we have to submit? LDAP job, LDAP. Instead of calling it as LDAP, simply you can call as LDAP job. We have to submit the LDAP job so that the roles will get synchronized with our user. Click on schedule new process. Here search for LDAP, LDAP. Use tab, click on search. So the first job, retrieve latest LDAP changes. This job we have to submit to synchronize the roles with the user. Select. If you click on that, the job can be selected and say OK. Now in the Fusion applications, whatever the job you submit, job means it may process some data or it can perform some action or else it may produce some report. Whatever the purpose you are running that you call as job. Here you can notice we have a job and job set. In EBS we have a request and request set. Instead of request, here the name they change to job. So whatever you run, it may be report or it may be related to some process, you can find the description. In EBS if you are running some report or anything, we are not very sure about what is the purpose. Okay, if the report or job are self-explanatory. Otherwise, what is the purpose of the report or job you are running, we will come to know after once the report is generated. But here, whenever you run any job, it provides the description, what the job, what sort of action the job will do, whether it will provide the report or it will process some data. So everything you could see as a part of description. So now here you could see the retrieve latest LDAP changes the job, what purpose we are running. To synchronize users and user related roles, within the roles whatever grants we have, everything to synchronize all the users, roles and role related grants in the definition of LDAP. Okay, to sync what are the information is available in the application as a users and the roles and the role related grants, those information need to be updated in the LDAP directory services. For that reason we are running. Just say OK. So here no parameters we have, directly you can submit. And what are the job we are submitting? Just say OK. What are the job we are submitting? This job runs at instance level. The entire instance level this job will run. The job whatever we are submitting, that is not user specific. Okay, this is not user specific job. So why we are submitting this job? We created user and we assigned the roles. Say for example there are two users, user 1 and user 2. User 1 created 10 users and assigned the roles. User 2 also created 10 users and assigned roles. Now if user 1 is going to submit this LDAP, that's more than enough. If instance is same, anyone can submit the LDAP job. So that will synchronize all the users and user related roles which are available in the same instance. That means this runs at instance level. Okay, so now we submitted LDAP job. In the same instance, if any other user is going to submit the same job, system will block it. It won't allow till this job is complete, because that is not a user specific job. This runs at instance level. Okay, it takes some time. Finally, the status will turn into succeeded. But the point is, whenever you assign the roles to the user, automatically system will perform the synchronization. So system, other side system also will try to do the synchronization automatically, and but Oracle is recommending us to run this job through manual process. So you no need to wait till this job completes, and it will update the status as succeeded. Submit this job, maybe you can wait for 1 or 2 minutes, then later you can go and verify, you can see the expected results. Okay, so you don't need to wait till you see the status has succeeded, because there will be a number of users and roles within this environment. System will try to synchronize everything. So that is the reason. So after submitting, wait for 1 or 2 minutes, then you can try to log into the user with your username, and you will be able to see the expected privileges from that user. This is how you can manage with this job. Okay, here any questions from anyone, please? So we created user, we assigned the roles, and we submitted LDAP job. Okay, to synchronize those roles with the respective user. And again, we are discussing this job runs at instance level. This is not user specific. So for entire instance level, what are the new users are created, what are the roles are assigned, every the total information this job will consider, and it will sync with the LDAP directory services. So this is what we have to understand. Any questions here, please?
Hi, Lakshman. Hi, Lakshman.
Please.
Lakshman, yesterday I tried with the instance what you gave initially. I tried to create a user and added role, and when I tried to save, I was getting the access error, the server error.
Fine.
I sent a mail also yesterday.
Yeah, I understand, but I think this is not the time to discuss that point. Please don't mind. We can discuss these issues in the beginning or ending. Now we are just discussing about some topic. Let's focus on that. If you have some instance issues, other issues, definitely will. Yeah, that we can discuss
Okay.
in another session. Any questions
Okay.
here, please?
Hello.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, I would like to know, as you said, you have to submit this LDAP job manually.
Correct.
So what is the, I mean, the actual, time limit? Like, is it executing automatically every 5 minutes or every 10 minutes? What is the reason we are submitting it manually then? Just for curiosity.
The automatic synchronization, it may take 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 15 minutes or 20 minutes also. That totally depends on the whatever the jobs are submitting to that LDAP directory services, based on if you are creating the new users, if you are assigning the roles, or else that the jobs may be in the queue, because there are many other jobs are submitted to that equal to concurrent manager. Here we have a scheduler service. So there may be a number of jobs in the queue. So one by one system has to execute. So to execute and to get our turn to synchronize, it can take 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 15 or 20 minutes also. So that is the reason. So Oracle is recommending to run this job as soon as possible. Like the moment you submit, it would hit that process of synchronization so that it would get completed. Now, ideally, whatever the job you submitted, it may take 5 to 10 minutes to complete. Okay, but you don't need to wait till that time. Just submit, wait for 1 or 2 minutes. You'll be able to access the roles. Reason other side system would be system will trigger auto synchronization also.
I have a question.
Please.
You said the process would be, processing the data at the instance level.
Correct.
So it means if there are different users, they logged in, different users logged in, and they created different users.
Correct.
So those changes will also be completed within this in the single process.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions here, please? Any other user related role assignments and changes, everything
So,
job will consider and it will take into the synchronization process. Yeah, Deepak, please.
so Lakshman, if let's say like she asked, right, if multiple users are trying to create the multiples like individual roles, and if some reason if everybody is running the LDAP job, will it actually wait for the second jobs to be
Exactly.
completed or
Exactly. Now, if you go and run this LDAP job once again, it will block.
okay? So another thing is this LDAP job is only for the user process or it used for some other things also?
No, no, not for any other process, only for roles assignment only. When you talk about roles, roles we assign to the user only. So what are the roles
Yes, yes.
assigned to the user? So accordingly, the user has to get the access, right? For that, the
Yeah.
synchronization should happen only for that
Okay.
purpose, not for any other.
Okay. Other purpose, because actually why I'm asking, like if it's used for other purpose,
No, no, no,
we
no.
could schedule this job like
Yeah,
every half an hour or 1 hour.
no, not for other purposes. For other purposes, based on the data and the transaction process, we have a different jobs, but LDAP only for this purpose. Okay, role synchronization with the users. Only that purpose we use.
One more question.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I'm asking in advance. This LDAP process that would be run at the instance level, or all the other processes like
No, 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 got you.
journal generation?
No, no. This is only runs at instance level. See, most of the jobs what we run, even in EBS, will have a parameters, right?
Okay, okay.
Yeah. Based on the parameters,
Oh,
we'll be running. You may run for specific ledger, you may run for specific
okay,
business unit, you may run for inventory organization. That's how we run. Okay.
okay. Yeah, yeah, got it.
This is a instance level, no parameter. It's not user specific. It will consider all the changes with respect to role assignments to the users. That's how it will try to synchronize. The remaining most
Okay,
of the max jobs, whatever you see, all are specific to something, not
okay,
in
okay.
instance level. Yes,
Lakshman, one question here.
please.
In my company, actually, right now in EBS, whenever a responsibility is assigned, we have a business process of where we send an email to the manager of the person who is getting that responsibility, just informing them that this responsibility is being assigned. So, can we have, or does Fusion have anything like that at all? Like
See,
when you assign a
even
role?
one second, even in EBS also that standard functionality we don't have. You guys are built, okay, that notification sending the workflow setup and all. That is the reason. That is a custom option. That is the reason that user is getting the notification. In EBS also that is not a standard functionality.
It is an alert that we are doing in EBS.
Yes, yes.
So,
Here
is
you
there any
cannot, here you cannot build any alerts. Since it's a cloud, the alerts cannot be built against the database based on the source attribute updates, etc.
Okay.
You cannot do that.
So
But
do we?
certain transactions and all, yes, definitely you'll be able to set the approvals or forever information notifications. Those and all you can do. But for everything, wherever you want, there you cannot set. Since EBS is on premise, so you can just do any sort of customizations or any sort of kind of alerts or just these and all system will allow. Since it's on premise, that would be in our control, but in case of cloud, no, that alerts and all you cannot set up.
So is there anything in cloud that restricts or the role assignment? I mean, like saying for a specific user, only inquiry has to be assigned. We cannot have full access to a specific business user. Is there anything that restricts that role assignment, or is it just based on the individual who is assigning it?
It's all about we have to take the decision and we have to assign that relevant roles to that user. And if you have especially
Okay.
only view only access and all, accordingly you have to create the roles, custom roles.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. Any other questions, please?
Yeah.
Yeah, Lakshman,
Yeah, Ashish.
Yeah, Lakshman, when you are creating a user, that time I was just watching that besides role, there is something called auto sync, auto seeded configuration. So, I mean, can you just throw some light on that particular part, the button?
See, that you can do that anyway. That we are going to cover in our classes. But
Okay,
to
okay,
use that, we require employee user. That means, see, now what we did, we created a user and manually we assigned the roles, right?
correct.
So with that option, the auto provisioning, the tab, whatever you have seen, what you are referring is auto provisioning, auto provision
Correct.
roles. So with the tab, what you can do is you can create one condition. If user is belongs to finance department, or if user is belongs to so and so business unit, or else if
Hmm.
user is employee user, I mean to say permanent employee, or if user is contingent worker, contract employee,
Hmm.
or if user is user's manager is so and so, or user is having so and so job or so and so position, which roles need to be assigned automatically. The conditions you can create accordingly to the conditions, automatically system would assign the roles to that user. For that purpose, we have that option. Once we are ready with the employee user, I'll be showing how to create those conditions, how system will assign the roles automatically to the user once you create the user. Now we created a user called as GoFusion. System did not assign any roles because we cannot apply any conditions for the users which you create as a implementation users. If you are creating the users as a employee users, for employee users there will be a lot of association, the employee type and the manager department. There are many attributes which you can connect. Since is a user definition is employee, based on that you can create the conditions and you can predefine, you can preset certain roles. So whenever you create the user, based on that parameter, system will trigger that roles assignment. Okay, so that is the purpose of the tab. We'll cover that. We have to complete the required setups. Whenever you create the user, then I'll show how to create the conditions and we'll test also by creating some new employee user. Any other questions here, please?
Lakshman, here
Yeah,
actually the
Lakshman.
Yeah,
user we created was GoFusion,
correct.
but here it displays as Google, and here we submitted only one request: retrieve latest LDAP changes.
You see here, we are accessing to
The
the
submitted by
1 second. We are accessing the application as
Google. The
Google.
username
No, no, 1 second, one
it
second.
is
I got your point. Who submitted this retrieve latest LDAP changes?
submitted by Google. It displays.
Same it is showing as Google. And these are also submitted by Google because we are using some existing user which I am using for a different batch. So earlier these jobs also submitted by Google user only. That's the meaning of it.
Okay, but the user name should display GoFusion, no?
What you are understanding here? Who submitted this? You created one user. How come does that name will come here? Who submitted these jobs? Google. Why the name will come here? GoFusion, why it will come? What is the logic you are talking about here? Tell me.
We did not log in as GoFusion user yet. We are
Yes.
still in Google and trying to create the user. That's all.
Yes.
Okay.
Who submitted? Google. The same system is showing. That's it. Any other questions, please?
Lakshman, is there any way we can create the users in bulk and assign the roles to them?
Bulk users, we have a option of creating the users through spreadsheet also. Through spreadsheet process also we can create and we can load that users into application. But roles assignment you cannot do automatically. You can do the roles assignment by creating the conditions. Okay, see we have a different options. One is you can create the users automatically. The roles you can assign by using the conditions. We have one more option also. where you can, these are the two different sheets. One is online sheet. In online sheet, you can just assign to the roles to existing users. Let me write here. The option 1. The option 1, it allows to create the users automatically. Users you can create automatically. Okay, just users only you can create. When you create the users automatically, by using the auto provisioning concept, you can create the conditions. By using the conditions, you can assign the roles automatically. Okay. When you create users automatically, you can create. For that, Oracle is providing the spreadsheet. Through spreadsheet, you can load the users. But when you are loading the users, within that spreadsheet, you cannot include the roles. Whenever you create the user, to assign the roles automatically, you can create the condition. Auto provisioning conditions you can create. With the help of those conditions, roles can be assigned. And the option 2 is, if users are exist, you can assign the roles through spreadsheet. Roles you can assign through spreadsheet. Okay, that's a live sheet. It's not offline sheet, live sheet. In that spreadsheet, you can assign the roles, those you can submit to the instance. Sorry, this is option 2. So this is how you can do. We don't have any sheet like users action, roles assignment and all in one go, because roles users you can write directly, but roles and all will be part of application, and if you want to associate those directly, again the sheet need connection to the application. So that is the reason, if users are exist, to assign the roles to that user, we have a spreadsheet process. If you are creating the users automatically to the same users, if you want to assign the roles automatically, you have to create the conditions separately. So first you can create the create the conditions, then you can load the users, then system will create the users and it will assign the conditions. But there is no one place where you can go and set everything, user creation, roles assignment in one go. That is not it. This is how we can do.
Is that
So will
conditions
this be
creation
addressed?
Sorry?
Is that condition creation also in a spreadsheet?
Condition definition not in the spreadsheet, directly in the application will create. That is a separate task.
So should we create each condition separately, or?
Each condition in the sense on what base you want to assign the roles. Say one condition is, if any user is belongs to ABC business group, okay, sorry, ABC business unit, then system has to assign these 5 roles. Or if any user is belongs to finance department, these 3 roles need to be assigned. This is how you have to create the condition. So how many conditions you want to create totally depends on what base you want to assign the roles.
Okay.
Yeah. Or else simply you can say, if user type is employee user, which roles need to be assigned? If user type is, or say user type is contingent worker, which roles need to be assigned? The simple rule you can define. Okay, if user manager is so and so, which roles need to be assigned? Say for example, there is one manager, there is one supervisor in the organization who is working for payables department. So wherever to which employees that manager is associated, for all those users, if you want to assign the similar payables roles, yes, you can define one condition. So that's how system would assign for all the payables users. Since that manager is associated as a supervisor, the same role system would assign. That's how you can define the condition, then system would automate the roles assignment. That we'll see once we are ready with employee user. We'll create the conditions and we'll test. Yep. So is the retrieve latest LDAP changes job is completed. Okay. So ideally when you run these jobs, you can run the job or you can run any report and all. When you run, so here you can, system would create log file as well as output files. Okay. So this is how you can do. So from here only you can run the any reports also. This user got access to many reports also. So for example, payables invoice related report. Say payables validation process. Validate payable invoices. This you can run. See, when you are running, you can see the description. It checks the matching, tax, period status, conversion rates, and distribution information for invoices, and uses tolerance templates to apply holds for exceptions. It will consider all these points and system will try to perform the validation. When the system is going to validate the payable invoices, it will consider all the points so that they are giving as a description. This is how you can run certain jobs and you can run the reports also. Fine. And one more point, by default here the user is Google. So if you verify in this instance what are the other users are running the jobs, you cannot see. Okay. So I'm selecting last 72 hours, what are the jobs are submitted I want to see. You just verify all jobs you could see here which are submitted by current user. That means in this ESS job page, this page we call as ESS job page. The ESS job page, what are the jobs you see, those are specific to the user. This user, what are the jobs are submitted, those jobs only you can see. So if you want to see other user related jobs also, you have to create one custom job. In the custom job, you have to give the full privileges to ESS related privileges. There will be database security parameter that you have to set up. So as a part of payables, we'll be creating the custom roles. At that time, I'll just show you how to include that privileges into role, or how to create the separate role, which role will allow the user to have access to other users submitted jobs within the same environment, so that you may just monitor all those. You can just look into if required. Otherwise, the specific user submitted jobs only can be accessed by that user. Other user jobs cannot be accessed. That is the default how they made it. Done. Now we'll log into the instance as a GoFusion user and we'll verify, because of these three roles, what privileges this user should get. Those are user is able to access or not. Okay, now we'll just connect to the instance as a GoFusion user. Sign out as a Google user. Now log into the instance as GoFusion user. Fine. Now the first point, we assign role called as application implementation consultant role. If you assign application implementation consultant role, that user should get access to FSM to perform the setups. Now we'll verify our GoFusion user got access to FSM or not. How to verify if FSM access the user has or not? Click on username. If not on username, next to user you have a arrow option. Okay, drop down option sort of thing. You can click on that or click on username. I'm clicking on username. it will open the panel. Within the panel, if that user has access to FSM, Functional Setup Manager, you can find one task called as Setup and Maintenance under Administration title. Here we have a task called as, here whatever we perform, almost we call it as a tasks. Okay, so if you click on username, it will open the panel. Within the panel, you can find one task called as Setup and Maintenance. This task will navigate us to FSM page. If you see Setup and Maintenance task here, that means this user has access to FSM. Just click on that Setup and Maintenance task. So this is a FSM page. From here you can do the setups for any application. You can set for a finance applications or Fusion Accounting Hub, grants management, okay, marketing or order management or procurement, product management means inventory application, and sales, services, supply chain planning, etc. The workflow deployment and development is nothing but HCM. Okay, these offerings we call, we'll talk about that when we talk about FSM, the terminology and all we'll discuss. So from here you can select for which applications you want to do the setups. I'm selecting financials. Then here you can select specific application, general ledger or payables or receivables. Then you can do the setups. These are the different setups which you can perform for general ledger application, all tasks. There are many setups for GL. The same way you can select any other applications. I'm selecting fixed assets, and here select all tasks. These are the setups we have to perform. From FSM we can do only setups. We cannot perform any transactions. These all are different setups which we have to perform for this receivables application, fixed assets. In the same way, select receivables. Required tasks means that setups which are mandatory. So here all tasks means these are the all setups, including optional and mandatory setups. So from here also you can do the setups, but ideally when you talk about doing the configuration, we create the project and through project we'll do the setups, so that we can take the advantage of moving the setups from one instance to another instance. And there are many other advantages. What those exactly, once we get into the project creation and all, we'll discuss. So from here you can do the setups, or else in FSM you can click on this task list. This we call as a task list or a task pan. It will contain multiple tasks. Okay, we are in the FSM page. From here you can do the specific application setups, or else what you can do is you can go to manage implementation projects. This once again we'll discuss more detail level. Into next session we'll talk about FSM and we'll be discussing more detail level, then we'll navigate and we'll do. As an introduction I'm just taking through these pages. So here we navigated to manage implementation projects. I'm going back again. Okay, how we can land in this page. Click on username, under administration, select task called as setup and maintenance. So that system will navigate us to a page. From here you can select specific area of applications and you can do the setups, or else go to task list. Here you have a task called as first task, manage implementation projects. Here you can see many implementation projects. These all are implementation projects. Why we have to create implementation project, what is the exact meaning of implementation project in the Fusion applications as a part of instance creation. These points we'll discuss more detail level in the next session. So here you can create the project, through project you can do the setups. So this environment access we required to do any application related configuration. Since we assign application implementation consultant role to this user, we are able to access to FSM to perform the setups. Okay, done. The other role, what role we assign? IT security manager. The IT security manager role will give the access to security console, right? That's what we discussed. If you assign the IT security manager role to user, that user can have access to security console. We'll verify our Go Fusion user has access to security console or not. How to check? Go to navigator. Within the navigator, you can find tools section. Go to tools. Under tools, if you find the task called as security console, you can say, yes, this user has access to IT security manager. If the user has access to, or say if IT security manager role is assigned to that user, then only you can see security console task under tools. You can select security console. So here you have a users, and you can have a tab called as add user account and roles. Okay, you can assign the roles to the users and you can create the custom roles. So these are all the users and role related access we have. That's what we discussed. The IT security manager will give the access to security console. It will allow us to create the users. It allows us to assign the roles or custom roles creation. Everything is possible with the help of IT security manager. So our user has access to IT security manager. That is the reason we are able to access to this page. The next point is employee role also we assign to that user. If we assign the employee role to the user, what access this employee role will provide? So already discussed, this role will give the employee self-service page access and it will allow us to run the reports. When you say running the reports, so you can check this user can run the reports or not. Within the navigator, we have a tools. Under tools, the scheduled process. Here you have a scheduled process task, which will allow us to run any job. So ideally, the user will get access to this scheduled process if employee role is assigned to that user. Along with this scheduled process, this user is able to have access to this me section. If you expand it, you can find this is the employee self-service access. So if this user is a employee user, then this task related data can access. Now this user is implementation user. So there won't be any personal information or a directory access, checklist task or pay or learning, wellness, okay, competitions, web clock or my CV, etc. These information cannot be accessed by implementation users. Implementation users are not associated with employees, so that employee related data cannot be accessed. But since we assigned employee role, we are able to see if you click on anything, nothing you find as a data system would fetch. Nothing, blank. Personal information, no personal information is available related to Go Fusion. Go Fusion is not an employee user. This would be useful for employee users, but why we assign to this Go Fusion user this employee role? The reason is that role will give the access to scheduled process task. That is the reason we assign, not for this personal information or anything else. The same, anything you select, no information is associated with this Go Fusion user. Reason Go Fusion is user is a implementation user. Anything you select. Time means time cards. If user is an employee user, and if you assign the employee role to that user can connect to all these. If the relevant data is available within this instance from HCM side, the user will be able to access the data from here. So three roles we assign, the three role related privileges this user is able to connect. So even if you assign the roles, sometimes if you are not able to access something, you have to understand the roles are not synchronized in the Ldap directory services. In that case, we have to submit Ldap job or else we have to wait for some time. Sometimes after submitting Ldap job also, immediately the role related privileges the user may not have. In that case, we have to wait for a little bit more time so that the synchronization related updates it takes. Otherwise, after submitting Ldap, still if you are not able to see expected tasks or privileges, what you can do is one time you can log out and log in. That's how sometimes system would establish the new session. We know when we log into the instance, it establish new session. The new session can fetch the changes which already occurred within the instance for user. So that's what you can do. So any questions here, please?
Lakshman, in real-time implementation, is it that we use that the first option that you said, like we create the roles using spreadsheet and we get that auto provisioning role conditions created? Is it how we do in real time?
See, that totally depends. Say you have a 10 payables users. For 10 payables users, say when you are specifying the department, you can give the department as a payables department or finance department. For the 10 users, if you want to assign the few roles, same. Say 2 roles you want to assign to all the users. If that is a scenario, instead of assigning for 10 users, 20 times those 2 roles, right? For each user, 2 roles you have to assign. That means 20 times you have to perform the assignment. Instead of doing that, simply you can write the rule called as condition called as if employees belongs to payables, then these 2 roles need to be assigned. Simply you can create the condition, then system would create. Or else, as per your requirement, in payables 10 users we have, for 10 users, each user required access to different roles, or else only 2 users required access to similar roles, other 8 users required access to different roles. In that case, even if you create the condition, there is no great use. You have to see the situation. If specific category of user required access to few similar roles, then you can create the condition. Otherwise, we can do through manual process. Okay, rarely
How
we
will
use
the
the
system?
conditions. Rarely we use the conditions. So ideally
Okay.
we can assign. If you have a large volume of users and many users based on so and so condition, say for there are 100 users, out of 100 users, 50 users require access to one role. So in that case, based on the criteria, you can create the condition for 50 users that one role will get assigned because of condition. Remaining roles you can assign through manual process as per requirement. Or else if you see,
I'm
yeah, yeah, please.
I'm morely talking towards like we are looking for migrating from EBS to Fusion. So when we move, we will have all our users to be created in Fusion environment, right? So probably we will, I don't know, but we may be using the spreadsheet that you have mentioned to create all
Correct,
the
correct.
users.
Yes.
And we do have people in payables, AR, fixed assets, these kind of different departments where we have some business users who some of them use almost like they all have the same responsibilities, but some people have some additional. So if there are 5 responsibilities that all AP teams should have, then I think condition creation is best. But again, how will the system know that these 5 people belong to AP team? Or
That's what I
they,
mentioned. In that user definition, you have to use any one of the parameter as a criteria. The users who belongs to payables department. In the employee definition, employee user creation time, you can specify the department. You can select department as a payables. Okay. Now you can write the condition based on the department parameter. The
got you.
users,
Okay.
the employee who is belongs to payables department, for all those users, these 2 roles need to be assigned. You can specify, then system will assign automatically.
So these two are connected steps, right? The option 1 that you suggested are connected steps, which means.
Yes. Condition
Okay.
based only it will assign. Option 2 is that is a manual process. Instead of doing in the application, you can do in the spreadsheet. That's it.
That is just role spreadsheet, right? It doesn't have any
Roles.
users in it.
It won't have users, but whatever the users already you have in the application, those you can access. It's not for user creation.
So we can give saying like 5 users having in which are already there in the system. For those users, assign these 5 roles kind
Exactly,
of thing can
exactly.
be
You can
provided.
select the user, specific user, and you can assign the roles. That's it.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll show that options also. Okay.
Hey, Lakshman, this
Yeah.
Vikrant.
Which this point what we are referring. I'll take you through all this. Yeah, please.
In EBS, we get an error like you are not set up as a worker. So for that, we associate Oracle user account with employee record. So how do we do that here? How is that handled?
So here direct point user we create, and there will be field called as a person. There you can associate employee to the user. If you don't create, if you are trying to create the purchase orders, the system will throw that message.
Yes.
And here what you can do is, here we have option like one is directly you can create employee user, or else what you can do is you can convert user as a implementation user as employee user. That's how you can do. There is no separate point where you have a field to select the employee.
Okay.
Okay, so if any user is trying to access the application, if that user is your organization employee, then you will be creating as employee user. So as a consultant, we are going to work, so we cannot become organization employees. We'll be creating as a implementation users. And here simple point, say now we are doing the implementation and we are working in the test environment. Okay, test instance. The test instance you can create ourselves as employees also, so that you can do all the set of suppliers, you can create any transactions you can check. But when it comes to production, okay, prod instance, when we are working as a consultants, okay, we have to do the setup. Say you have to create the suppliers and all. In that case, when we create ourselves as a implementation user, okay, so we cannot convert ourselves as employees. That is the reason what we'll do is, so before we do all these setups, definitely the employees information would be available. We'll talk to the business and we'll use any one of the employee record to associate with our user, or else based on that employee record we'll create one user. Some super users will be there in the organization, so that employee related user credentials will use, and will be performing all the setups. Once we're done with that, you can unassign those roles. That's how the user will continue with the same credentials. So
Okay, or a dummy employee, something like that.
Dummy employees we should not create. In the production I am talking. If it is test, yes, you can create dummy and all. In production you should not create dummy employees. That is reason the genuine any one of the employee record association you can use for your user, so that you can complete your setups or anything else.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, fine.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Any other questions, please?
Yeah, Lakshman, I have one question. When we talk about Fusion, we schedule the job. So is there any concurrent manager like concept in EBS? When we run a concurrent program, there is a manager behind that programs, backend processes. So is this a concept in Fusion?
Yes, that's the same. The concurrent manager is nothing but here enterprise scheduler. Okay, which is equal to concurrent manager process only. There we submit the job that would get submitted to concurrent manager. Here, whatever the job you submit, that goes to enterprise scheduler. Enterprise scheduler is equal to concurrent manager in EBS. Okay. The jobs will be processed by enterprise scheduler. This ESS is part of middleware. We'll discuss maybe after 2 sessions. We'll talk about the arc structure of Fusion, the middleware, what are the components we have. At that time we'll address those points.
In EBS, we have application developer responsibility. Do we have the same kind of roles in the cloud?
So similar to that, here this is a role we use, IT security manager. The similar privileges you can have.
Okay. And do we have like a same type, like in EBS we have workflow background process? So are we using the
workflows we have, but they changed the naming convention to BPM, business process management.
Oh, BPS. Okay, all right.
Yeah, these points like in max 2 sessions I'll be covering when we talk about enterprise. Fusion architecture. These all will come in the middleware components. So we'll talk about what else we have. The BPM we have. There are many other components. We'll discuss those. Maybe 2 more sessions we have to finish. Then we'll connect to those points. Fine. And here, just now what we did, to create user from this Google user. Now from this user also you can create users, because GoFusion user has access to IT security manager. So this GoFusion user also will be able to create the new users, since this user got security console. Instead of taking the navigation to from here, going to navigator and going to tools, selecting security console, what you can do is, if you want to create the user, what you can do is click on the username, go to setup and maintenance, take us to FSM, go to task list, click on search. From here you can search for the task called as implementation users. You can search for implementation users task. Here we have a task called as create implementation users. If you click on this create implementation users, this also will navigate us to security console only to create the user. Okay, you can use any navigation. Okay, from the navigator you can go to tools. Under tools you have a schedule security console task. You can click on that, you can navigate, or else what you can do is you can click on the username. Okay, you can go to setup and maintenance. If you have access to FSM, then you can do this. If you don't have access to FSM, if you have access to only IT security manager role, then only the option is through navigation. Say you have access to FSM also, in that case you can go to task list, select search, then you can search for create implementation users. So these are the different navigations you can use to go to security console page to create the user and to assign the roles. Fine. So this is all about implementation user creation, roles assignments, and the synchronization, which you can do through Ldap, lightweight direct access protocol. We have to submit the job. So any questions on these today discussed point or from the previous classes, please? Okay.
Lakshman, one question on the worker error that one of the caller was talking about, right? That generally comes if a
worker
FND user
no, 1 second.
is not linked.
No, 1 second. What is a worker?
One of the caller just mentioned to you that.
No, 1 second. That he was referring EBS. In EBS, if you don't assign, if you don't make employee as a buyer, and if you don't associate with the employee user, that error we get. In the similar way here, we have something to associate and all is asking. That's it. Not in the fusion. In EBS.
Yeah. I was just trying to understand if it is same in Fusion also, because I know that we get that worker error when we don't have employee association with the.
Yeah, if you are trying from implementation user, yes, you will face that. Since employee is not associated with the implementation user.
Okay. For example, what can we try as an implementation user to see that error in Fusion?
Sorry?
Just for example, I'm asking. Just for example, to see that error, what can we try?
You can go and try to create the procurement documents.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that's how.
Thank you. That's all.
Yeah. So any other questions, please, from today's session? Or
yeah, Lakshman, any approval hierarchies is there in user creation?
Approved hierarchy? What you said?
For any new user creation, any approval hierarchy is there in new feature in Fusion?
Yeah, approved hierarchy in the sense you can specify who is a supervisor and all those information, the user related information you can specify. But when it comes to approved hierarchies and all, we'll be creating separately and we'll be mapping with that users or roles, jobs or positions or etc. That's approved hierarchies and all separate task. Separately we have to create. At the time of user creation, no, there's nothing will connect with the approvals. So once user is available, then we can create approvals by pointing specific user or based on some criteria. You can create the approval hierarchy or approval rules however we require. If you have any that relevant questions when once we start working on that approvals, better we can discuss so that we can see the same. But to answer to your question, user creation time, no, nothing we have.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Yeah, fine. So if no questions, we can wind up for today. In the next session, we'll talk about FSM and we'll create the implementation project and we'll try to understand the terminology, what we use in the FSM. And we can start doing few basic setups. Before we start with actual setup, there are certain tasks which we have to perform. Those we'll discuss and do it. So after completing that session, we'll discuss about enterprise structure and fusion architecture. So after that, slowly we can start with the core configuration of calendar, chart of accounts, ledger, and the business units. And we'll create our own enterprise structure, the fusion environment, which is equal to EBS multi-org structure. Then we'll go one by one. So we'll start as a first application as a AP. After AP, we'll complete P2P cycle. After completing AP and P2P cycle, we'll start with the receivables. Then we'll complete O2C. Then we'll complete cash management, fixed assets, and fusion tax and fusion expense. Then finally, we'll come back to GL. So this is a sequence we are going to follow. Fine. If no questions, we can wind up for today. We'll connect in the next session.